Hey everyone, welcome back to Story Voyage. In today's story, you're in for a wild ride betrayal, secrets, and the kind of revenge you wouldn't believe if it wasn't true. Imagine finding out that your spouse is not only cheating, but tangled up in a criminal scheme. What would you do? Well, one man decided to team up with the FBI. Let's dive into this jaw-dropping tale of justice served. So here's my story. It's been a wild ride, and I'm still processing everything, but I think sharing it here might help me come to terms with it. Bear with me because it's a long one. Buckle up. It all started a little over 2 years ago when I started noticing that my wife Hannah was acting off. We had been married for 8 years, and for most of that time, we were inseparable. She was my best friend, or so I thought. But things started to change. She became more distant, more secretive. She'd be on her phone constantly, texting someone with a smile that wasn't meant for me. She'd have sudden work meetings late into the night, and when I asked her about it, she would brush it off, telling me I was being paranoid. At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. I convinced myself that it was just a phase or that maybe I was the one being too clingy. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. It was in the way she looked at me, the way she avoided eye contact when I asked about her day, and the way her phone was always locked away when we were together. One night, she left for another late meeting and something in me snapped. Couldn't take the uncertainty anymore, so I followed her. I tailed her for about 20 minutes until she pulled up at a hotel. That sinking feeling hit me hard. My heart was pounding, my hands were shaking, but I needed to know. She went inside, and after a few minutes, I saw her walk up to a man in the lobby. He wasn't just any guy, he was someone I recognized. A man named Richard, who worked in the same office as her. He had always been overly friendly at company events, but I didn't think anything of it at the time. I watched as they embraced, kissed, and walked to the elevator together. That's when it all came crashing down. I drove home in a fog of anger, betrayal, and confusion. I didn't know what to do. Confronting her right away didn't feel like enough. I wanted revenge, but not just any revenge. I wanted to destroy both of them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed up thinking about every possible way I could get back at her. Then an idea popped into my head. I had seen Richard flaunting his wealth on social media for years, bragging about his expensive cars, lavish vacations, everything else. He was always sketchy, never really explaining where his money came from, and it got me thinking, could he be involved in something illegal? The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The way he moved money around, the odd business trips, the extravagant spending, none of it lined up with the modest salary of his job. I decided to dig deeper. But the next day, while Hannah was at work, I called a private investigator. I needed to find out if my hunch about Richard was right. I told the Pi everything, and after a few weeks of investigation, he came back to me with the jackpot. Richard wasn't just cheating with my wife, he was laundering money for a criminal organization. I couldn't believe it. My mind was racing with possibilities. I wanted to expose him, take him down, and bring Hannah down with him. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed help, and that's when I decided to contact the FBI. At first, I wasn't sure if they'd even take me seriously. I wasn't exactly a federal agent. I was just a guy whose wife was cheating on him. But when I handed over the evidence the Pi had collected, they were very interested. Richard wasn't just small time. He was connected to something much bigger, and the FBI had been trying to nail the people he was working for. The agent I was working with, let's call him Agent Carter, told me that if I wanted justice, I had to be patient. They needed time to build a case, gather more evidence, and make sure everything was airtight. That meant I had to keep pretending that I didn't know about the affair. I had to act like everything was fine while they built their case. It was pure hell. Every time Hannah lied to me, every time she snuck out to be with Richard, I had to swallow my anger and play the fool. But I kept reminding myself that this would all pay off in the end. They wouldn't just get away with cheating, they'd face real consequences. For months, the FBI continued their investigation. They tapped phones, monitored financial transactions, and gathered enough evidence to bring Richard and his associates down. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, knowing what was coming but having to wait for the right moment. Finally, the day came. I'll never forget the look on Hannah's face when the FBI raided our house. They weren't just there for Richard, they were there for her too. Turns out she wasn't as innocent as I thought. While she wasn't directly involved in the money laundering, she knew about it. She had been helping Richard cover his tracks, and that made her an accomplice. I stood there watching as they led her out in handcuffs, and for the first time in months, I felt free. She tried to deny everything, tried to beg for my help, but it was too late. I had already made my decision. Richard, of course, was arrested too. The FBI took him down in a separate raid, and he's now facing serious prison time. Hannah, she's looking at a few years herself. Maybe not as long as Richard, but enough to ruin her life. People always say that revenge doesn't bring closure, but I disagree. Watching her world crumble, seeing her realize that her choices had destroyed everything, weirdly enough, it did give me some closure. I don't feel proud of what I did, but I don't regret it either. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. Thanks for sticking with us to the end of this incredible story. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of emotions and want more real-life stories of betrayal, revenge, and justice, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in his shoes? Until next time, keep exploring the stories that keep us hooked. See you in the next one.